Welcome. Welcome, everybody. How are you doing today? It's so very nice to have you here. And today I want to speak a little bit about our upcoming 3-week intensive. Are you ready for awakening? And the role of the nervous system and trauma in awakening and freedom. So, the capacity of the nervous system to be here. And I have been speaking about this for a while now. This is so essential. It's one of the most essential elements for awakening, embodiment, and freedom. And the reason why awakening, embodiment, or freedom are not present for you at any given moment is because our attention is still involved with and following the patterns of the past. So, capacity of the nervous system to be here is both essential for our ability to experience the arising past, rather than just follow it or be swayed by it, or rather than just trying to suppress it. We want to be able to experience the arising past. So that's what capacity of the nervous system is so important for. However, it is also important for our ability to be present or experience presence. So as I sit with you, as we sit together, and as we practice, and I mean in programs, when we sit together in programs or private sessions, and we practice helping the nervous system and the brain to be here, we practice understanding this piece, understanding this element, learning about the nervous system and brain, and helping it to be here, because it's such a crucial element for awakening, embodiment, and freedom. We often encounter the effects of trauma past. And when I say trauma, so we often sit with that, right? When we sit together, we encounter the effects of trauma past, and that's where we end up sitting with or working with, because it's such an important part of the capacity of the nervous system to be here. So when I say trauma past, just to clarify, I don't necessarily mean the events of the past, even though sometimes it's good to have the understanding of what happened, or sometimes we have very clear memories, sometimes we don't. It doesn't matter. That part is not so essential, right? But when I say trauma past, I mean the unresolved charge that is still present in the nervous system. And that charge is often causing many different symptoms that we are dealing with or experiencing, especially when we are engaging in the world, but also when we just simply want to be here, when we want to be present. And so if we don't understand or recognize these symptoms for what they are, and if we don't know how to address it, how to be present to it, this can become very challenging and sometimes very frustrating in our practice or in our ability to be here. And anytime we engage in a world, right? Because, engaging in a world is so different than just sitting quietly in meditation. But anytime we engage in a world, relationally, at work, in any other way, all of our energy, all the patterns of the past are going to engage. And so the trauma symptoms often become more apparent. However, also, and that in your own experience, when past or trauma past gets re-triggered, when we experience that reactivity of the past, and reactivity really is a symptom of the past, right? And one of the symptoms of trauma is reactivity that is out of proportion to the current event. You see, if you experience reactivity that is so much bigger than the current events, definitely that's the past. And so often trauma past, right? So we all know that when trauma past or past events get re-triggered, and there is so much reactivity going on, there is sensations and feelings, emotions and thoughts you know in your own experience how challenging it is at times to actually know in those moments where to put our attention. And it takes a lot of practice and a lot of inner strength and inner ability to really rely on presence, to really come into the present moment, to be able to be here in those situations, in those moments. So that's why I created this 3-week program, and I wanted to invite you to participate, as we are going to be working on it very experientially. And we are going to really identify many of the symptoms of trauma and how does that affect your ability to be here, and how to work with these symptoms in presence. I will also be speaking with you about your practice in general, and are you ready for awakening? Anything that stops you from awakening embodiment and freedom now. So I'm very much looking forward to our time together, and I want to invite you to join me.